So, what happens in a company when no one can question the leader? It's simple. Bad ideas survive, good people leave, and confusion spreads like a virus. And here's what I know. If your team can't give you feedback, you don't have alignment. You actually have compliance. And compliance will kill your innovation. So today, I'm going to show you how to build some healthy feedback loops that can create clarity, trust, and help you make better decisions. Now, this isn't really any fluff or no fancy, HR language here. This is just some real systems that I think that if you implement this week, you could see some immediate results. So let's dive in. All right, so what is a feedback? What does it actually do in all those different things? And so a feedback loop is very simple. You have an action, and from that action, there's a response, whether internally or externally. And then you have an adjustment that to be made, and then you repeat. That's it. Think of it like a thermostat. It doesn't guess. It measures the room, shows you where you are at, and what you need to adjust. You see, as leaders should function the same way, but the reality is that most of them don't. Instead they operate like a restaurant owner that refuses to read the reviews. So you might protect your ego, but your customers are going to leave, and you don't want that, and your team doesn't want that. And so the reality is your team knows what's broken. They just stop telling you. Why do feedback loops break? You may be thinking, man, I've tried these, they didn't work, it just broke down. Well, I believe there's about 3 different reasons why feedback loops collapse. First of all, is simply this. The leader ties their feedback to identity. And I've seen this so many times. If every suggestion that you get feels like an attack, you're going to shut down, as would anyone. But high clarity leaders, they separate this idea that, I made a bad call from, I'm actually a bad leader. There's a big difference, and it comes from not tying the feedback to identity. The second reason is there's no system for disagreement. That's the whole purpose of a feedback loop. If a feedback only happens in the hallways, or if they happen in the Slack channels, or the private DMs, or the anonymous complaints that suddenly come in, that's not a healthy culture. That's a culture that has a lot of leakage and a lot of issues, and you need some structure. A third reason is simply this, that a team gets punished for honesty. This is the silent killer. If someone pushes back, then they get sidelined, they lose influence, or they get labeled, they're just negative. Your culture is done. You don't have alignment. You actually have fear. So, how do you build healthy feedback loops? I'm going to give you 5 different ways to do that right now. The first one is simply this, is create an open challenge round. And this comes before any major decision that you stop and you have to ask the question, what am I missing? And have your team give you that feedback. Even require perhaps one pushback. Not optional, it's mandatory. This keeps you from building products and services that, nobody wants. And if you're doing that, that's a complete waste of time. So the open challenge round. The second way is simply this, is you've got to separate the idea from the person. Make this rule very clear, foundational. We attack the problem, never the person. If you don't say that out loud, then people assume the opposite. And what that creates is silence, and silence will spread like a pandemic. So you've got to separate the idea from the person. The third way is this, is creating a rhythm of having quarterly reality reviews. You say, what in the world is this? Well, take once a quarter, you sit down and you ask 3 questions with your team. What's confusing right now? And hopefully they will be honest and share that with you. The second question is this, is what decision is still unclear? Maybe you were all progressing towards something, and maybe there's just still some things that are unclear. And the third question is this, is where are we pretending things are okay. Now, that last question is gold, let me tell you, because pretending will kill clarity, and no one wants that. But it's creating these quarterly reality reviews that can be very helpful for that. A fourth way is simply this, is reward the disagreeer. You may say, what in the world? Yes, I thought we were only supposed to celebrate people that do great and positive things. Well, think of it like this. Publicly thank the person who respectfully challenges you. And when that happens, when you have disagreement and it's honored, it's actually going to multiply. And not that you're just always seeking that disagreement, but you're seeking this healthy conflict of being able to discuss with clarity, with honesty and respect. Because if disagreement is punished, it will disappear. Now, I get it, there are some environments, and maybe hopefully it's not the case with your team, where things just are not aligned in this realm. Like there's just no trust with your team. Therefore you cannot have a healthy conflict. But if you do have trust and are able to have healthy conflict, man, it's like the sports team that you want your teammates calling out the blind spots. If you think about it in basketball, like if a guy is always driving left on your teammate and getting past him, then wouldn't you call him out and say, hey, you need to watch this. He's taking you, he's getting a step on you. And it's not like you're never attacking the person, you're just simply calling out the blind spots so that you all can be better. And you want teammates, a healthy team, a high clarity team that is calling these things out to raise the bar and to raise the level of production and efficiency. So reward the disagreeer. And the final thing is simply this, you got to close the loop. If you don't close the loop, it can lead to further issues. And what I mean by this is this. When someone gives you feedback, respond with one of three things. Hey, we're adjusting this. Here's why we're not adjusting this. Or we're testing it. And if you take something, feedback, and actually implement it, and never actually let the person know who gave the feedback that, hey, I appreciate your idea, and this is what we've done, and here's the adjustments we've made. You've never closed the loop, and therefore they either are going to see the change happening, or they may never know, and so therefore there's this silence, which will be the killer of any future feedback. So you do not want this silence. That will kill your trust. You want to let them know that, hey, close the loop. I appreciate your feedback. It provided a lot of clarity, and that clarity will build trust. So what healthy loops should you create? When feedback loops are healthy, here's some things that happen. As I've watched this happen very firsthand with a lot of different teams, is decisions get sharper. Execution actually speeds up, and even the drama drops, believe it or not. And the great thing is that ownership rises, that people will own and take more responsibility when you have these healthy feedback loops. Because when people feel heard, man, they actually commit. And this is how you move from chaos to clarity with your team. It's not hype, it's a simple structure of creating these healthy feedback loops. I've mentioned I've worked with a lot of different types of teams. And where leaders, some of them could be questioned, some of them couldn't be questioned. And for those that you couldn't question, it was almost like if you spoke up, you were siloed. Feedback wasn't necessarily welcome unless it was only in the form of praise, and which fed their ego. And it was sometimes even interpreted as rebellion. That, oh, why are you giving this feedback? We did it great. Why are you questioning it? And the result of that type of behavior is that smart people will shut down. Innovation will die. And in my experience, sometimes the culture can look strong on the outside, but it was simply fragile on the inside. And that's why it's so important to have healthy feedback loops on a regular basis. So if your company or your organization feels stuck, it may not be strategy. It actually might be the silence that you are experiencing. And healthy feedback loops They're not soft leadership. They're actually very disciplined leadership. And if you want a clarity first culture, this is where it starts. And so, I hope this has been beneficial for you to take notice of maybe you need to implement some healthy feedback loops, because this is what I know. Clarity isn't accidental. It's actually created intentionally. It's engineered. And that's what the high clarity teams